You ever walk into someone's house and walk right into temptation? I didn't plan it. I swear, it just happened. The way she looked at me that night, it changed everything. And when my best friend left and his mother pulled me into the bathroom, it felt like the world went silent. The only thing I could hear was the pounding of my heart and the soft click of that. Door locking behind me, but let me back up. Her name was Clara, 41, divorced, but you'd never guess it by looking at her. She had that dangerous kind of beauty, the kind that crept up on you, the kind that didn't scream for attention but burned into your mind so quietly that you didn't even realize. You were obsessed until it was too late. She was always around. When I'd visit her son, my best friend Aaron, at first, she was just the cool mom who smiled when we came in with our loud music and dumb jokes. But somewhere between last summer and now, something changed. Or maybe I changed. It was a rainy Thursday. When it all started, Aaron and I were playing video games like always, trash-talking and laughing, but I couldn't stop glancing toward the hallway. She was walking around in this loose-knit sweater that barely hung on her shoulder and shorts that didn't really do much hiding. Every time she passed by, I caught a whiff of her perfume, subtle vanilla, and something darker underneath. It made me dizzy in the best way. "You staying for dinner?" Clara asked from the kitchen. "Yeah, sure," I called back, not even looking up, but I felt her eyes on me, not like a mom watching her son's friend. No, this was something else. Something that made the back of my neck tingle. Aaron had too. Leave early. Something about dropping off his sister at her dance class. "I'll be back in like 20, he said, already grabbing his hoodie. "No rush," Clara said, her tone almost too casual. He left. The front door closed, and then silence. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, trying to act like I wasn't suddenly very aware of being alone in the house with her. Clara walked into the room slowly, wiping her hands on a towel. She wasn't wearing a bra under that sweater, something I tried really hard not to notice, and failed. "Want a drink?" she asked. "Water's fine," I said, my throat suddenly dry. She disappeared into the kitchen and came back with a cold bottle, handing it to me. Our fingers touched. Just a second. But it was electric. "You're always so polite," she said, sitting across from me on the chair. Her legs crossed slowly, and her eyes didn't leave mine. "Aaron's friends used to be loud, messy, kind of obnoxious. But not you." I smiled awkwardly. "Guess I was raised right." She laughed, low and soft. I noticed the air between us shifted. She leaned forward just a little, elbows on her knees, sweater sliding lower down her shoulder. A thin strap of lace peeked through. "You've grown up a lot this past year. I almost didn't recognize you last month. Is that a good thing?" I asked, my voice quieter now. "Very good," she said, then stood. "Come here. I need help with something." I followed her without thinking. My pulse was thudding in my ears, but instead of going to the kitchen, she walked toward the hallway, toward the bathroom. "I just finished cleaning, but the light flickers sometimes. Can you check it?" That was the excuse. But the moment I stepped inside, she came in too, and shut the door. I turned, startled, just in time to see her lock it behind us. "Clara," I said, not sure what this was anymore. She whispered. She stepped closer. I could feel the heat from her body. "You've been looking at me. You think I haven't noticed." I tried to speak, but nothing came out. "I see how your eyes follow me, how you try not to stare when I walk." "Bye, it's okay. I don't mind." I took a step back. She took a step forward. Now there was barely space between us. "I shouldn't be doing this," she whispered, eyes flicking to my mouth. "But you're not stopping," I said, breathless. She smiled, slow and dangerous. Her hand came up, brushed lightly against my chest, then slid higher to my jaw. "I won't kiss you," she said. "Not yet, not unless you want me to." The silence was unbearable. I wanted her to. More than anything, I didn't nod. I didn't speak. I just leaned in slow, unsure. She met me halfway. That kiss was like a fuse being lit inside me. Slow burn, deep and hot. Her lips moved against mine with a hunger I didn't expect. Her hands slid into my hair, and mine found the curve of her waist, then her back. When we finally pulled apart, she didn't. "Look away. I've thought about this," she whispered. I swallowed hard. "You have?" She nodded. "Too many times." Her fingers grazed the back of my neck. "You should go before I do something reckless." This wasn't reckless, I teased, trying to breathe normally. Her smile widened. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." I left the bathroom dazed, heart pounding, skin on fire. As I stepped outside into the night rain, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't going to stop. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt her lips again. Soft, warm, tasting like something I shouldn't want but craved anyway. Clara by morning. I convinced myself it was just a moment of weakness for her, that maybe she'd regret it. But by late afternoon, my phone buzzed. Simple message: "Aaron won't be home until late. If you want to stop by." No explanation, no emoji, just that. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I typed back, "I'll be there." I got to her house. The sky was glowing with the orange haze of sunset. My heart was pounding as I knocked on the door, every worst-case scenario running through my head. But when she opened it, those worries melted instantly. Clara looked different tonight, more intentional. Her hair was loose, falling in soft waves, and she wore a black tank top with thin straps that clung just enough to her curves to make my throat dry. She smiled when she saw me, a slow smile that told me she wasn't regretting last night at all. Double quotes, "Hey," she said, her voice low, almost playful. "Hey," I managed, stepping inside. The house was quiet again. It's too quiet. "You want something?" "To drink?" she asked, walking toward the kitchen, her bare feet silent against the hardwood floor. "Water's fine," I said, following her. She grabbed a glass, filled it, and handed it to me. Our fingers brushed again, just like yesterday, but this time she didn't pull away. She let her hand linger for a second too long. Her eyes locked on mine. "You came fast," she said. "You asked," I replied, trying to sound casual, but my voice betrayed me. Her lips curved into a teasing smirk. "You really don't know how dangerous this is, do you?" "I do," I said, leaning against the counter, watching her, "but I'm not leaving." She raised an eyebrow, amused by my answer, then turned slightly, pretending to busy herself with something on the counter. I could tell she was aware of me. Every movement of hers felt deliberate, the way her hair slid over her shoulder, the way her tank top shifted when she reached for something. "You're staring again," she said without looking at me. "Maybe," I admitted. Finally. She turned to face me, her expression unreadable. "But you don't want me to stop," I said, my voice low. She tilted her head, studying me for a long moment, then gave a soft laugh. "You're getting bold." "Maybe I learned from you," I said, stepping closer. Her smile faded into something softer, more serious. "If we keep doing this, there's no going back." I took another step closer until we were only inches apart. "I don't want to go back." The silence between us was thick, heavy. She sighed softly, shaking her head like she was trying to convince herself to stop. But her hands betrayed her. They were gripping the counter behind her, knuckles white. "Clara," I said quietly. A voice almost a whisper. Her eyes met mine. And then, like something inside her snapped, she grabbed my shirt and pulled me closer. The kiss was harder this time. More urgent, like she'd been holding it in all day. Her hands slid up my chest, fingers curling into my shirt, and I couldn't help but pull her closer, my hands finding her waist. Feeling the warmth of her skin through the thin fabric of her top, she broke the kiss, just enough to breathe against my lips. "This is insane," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I don't care." I whispered back. She laughed softly, almost breathless. "You're going to get me into so much trouble." "You pulled me into the bathroom first," I teased. That made her smile wide, dangerous, and completely irresistible. She kissed me again. Slower now, deeper, her fingers brushing the back of my neck, sending shivers down my spine. When she finally pulled away, her forehead rested against mine, her breathing heavy. "You have to leave before Aaron comes home," she said reluctantly, her voice soft. "When?" I asked, still holding her in. 30 minutes? I grinned. "That's plenty of time." She raised an eyebrow, but didn't move away. "Your trouble? You know that?" "So are you," I said. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to argue. But then she sighed, giving in. "Fine, 30 minutes. She grabbed my hand then, pulling me toward the living room. Not fast, not urgent, just slow, deliberate. Her fingers laced with mine. When we reached the couch, she sat down, pulling me with her. She leaned back, her hair falling over her shoulder, and looked at me with that same playful smile. "You're staring again," she said. "Can you blame me?" I replied. Her laugh was soft, almost shy this time, and she shook her head. "You have no idea what you're doing to me right now." "Then show me," I said, without thinking. She froze for a second, staring at me, then slowly leaned closer, her hand sliding up my arm. "Careful," she whispered. "You might get exactly what you're asking for." "Good," I whispered back. She smiled, then kissed me again, slower, deeper, her fingers curling in my hair. Her body pressed closer to mine, and for a second, it felt like nothing else in the world existed. But just as things started to feel dangerous, she pulled back, breathing hard, her eyes closing for a moment. "We should stop," she said, though. Her hands were still on me. "Do you want to?" I asked. Her eyes opened slowly, locking onto mine. "No." And then she kissed me again. The next day felt longer than any day I could remember. Every sound, every thought, every moment was drowned out by one thing, Clara. Her lips, her touch, the way she whispered no but kissed me like she meant yes. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't even wait for her to text this time. It just showed up. She opened the door in a loose gray cardigan draped over a thin camisole. And for a second, all I could do was stare. Her hair was still damp from a shower, soft curls brushing her shoulders, and her skin glowed in the soft hallway light. "You didn't even call," she said, trying to sound annoyed, but the corner of her lips curved upward. "Would you have?" "Told me to stay away if I had," I asked. She paused, then smiled faintly. "Probably not." "Then it doesn't matter," I said, stepping inside. She closed the door, locking it quietly, and for a long second, we just stood there, staring at each other like neither of us wanted to be the first to move. Finally, she spoke. "Aaron's at his friend's place. He won't be home tonight." That changed everything. I raised an eyebrow. "So we don't have to rush this time?" She bit her lip, glancing away for just a second before meeting my eyes again. "Ow. Push your luck." I grinned. "I'm not pushing. I'm just asking." She shook her head, laughing softly, then walked toward the living room, her hips swaying just enough to make my pulse jump. "Come sit," she said, settling onto the couch. I sat next to her, close enough to feel the warmth of her body, but not quite touching. The tension was unbearable, and she knew it. "You're nervous," she said, turning slightly to face me. "Maybe," I admitted. "Good," she said with a teasing smirk. "You should be." I stared at her for a long moment, then leaned closer, my voice low. "And you're not." She looked at me, her smile softening, terrified. "Then why let me come back?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Because I want to. Because I can't stop thinking about you." That was all I needed, too. Here, I reached out, my hand brushing hers, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her hand over, lacing her fingers with mine. "You really don't know what you're getting into," she whispered. "Then show me," I said again. I stared at me. "Shh, her S. Her really don't. No word. Her word. Her word. Her word. Her word. Her word. Her word. Or showhead pat. I'll sell some solo with one ads. I'll sell some word odd. I want to some what till I blood dodum sa da and subsida wam said da was subsida since and wa we all da 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 sa da 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 was da 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 da. Long moment, her breathing changing, deeper, slower. Then finally she moved first. She leaned in, kissing me softly at first, almost testing, before deepening it. Her hands slid up my chest, fingers curling into my shirt. I couldn't help but pull her closer, my other hand resting lightly on her thigh. She gasped softly against my lips, not pulling away, but tightening her grip on me instead. "This is insane," she whispered between kisses. "I know," I said, my forehead resting against hers. "But I don't want to stop," she admitted, her voice shaky. "Then don't." She laughed softly, almost breathless, then kissed me again longer, deeper. Her hand sliding to the back of my neck. Her body shifted closer to mine, her knee brushing against my leg, and for the first time. She didn't try to keep any distance. Between us, when we finally pulled apart, she stayed close, her forehead resting against my cheek, her breathing heavy. "I shouldn't be doing this," she said softly, almost like she was trying to convince herself. "But you are," I whispered. She laughed again, shaking her head. "You're dangerous." "So are you," I said. We stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other, neither of us moving. But the tension was unbearable. Finally, she pulled back slightly, looking into my eyes. "If I ask you to stop, will you?" "Yes," I said honestly. Her gaze softened, almost tender. "Because I won't." And then she kissed me again slower this time, like she wanted to memorize every second. Her hands slid under my shirt, just resting against my skin, warm and careful. I froze for a second, but she didn't pull away. She just smiled against my lips. "You're shaking," she whispered. "Maybe," I admitted. She laughed softly, pressing her forehead against mine. "You're too honest. I like that." For the next hour, we stayed tangled on that couch, kissing, touching, whispering things we probably shouldn't. Every time we stopped to breathe, she'd smile at me, her eyes soft, her fingers brushing my jaw like she was trying to convince herself this was real. Finally, when the clock on the wall ticked past midnight, she sighed, sitting back slightly, her hair a little messy, her lips swollen from kissing. "You should go," she said reluctantly. "Don't want to." "I know," she said with a soft smile. "But if you stay, I might not let you leave." "Maybe I don't want to leave," I said, my voice low. She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine, then smiled faintly. Tomorrow, I repeated. As I left, I glanced back once. She was still sitting on the couch, watching me. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, and I knew one thing for sure. This was only getting more dangerous. I didn't even pretend to wait for her text this time. By late afternoon, I was already standing outside her door, my pulse racing like it had every time I came here. When she opened the door, she looked at me for a long moment, then smiled a soft, knowing smile, like she'd been expecting me. "You're early," she said, stepping aside to let me in. "You don't sound upset about it," I replied. She laughed softly. "I'm not." The house was quiet again, but tonight felt different. There was no rush in her movements, no nervous glances at the clock. She closed the door slowly, locking it with a quiet click, then turned to me. "Aaron's staying with his dad tonight," she said. That single sentence changed everything. "So," I started, my voice low, careful. "So," she repeated, tilting her head slightly. Watching me, the silence between us was thick, heavy, filled with something we both understood but hadn't dared to say out loud. Finally, she took a step closer, her fingers brushing lightly against my arm. "You don't have to pretend you're here for Aaron anymore." "I'm not," I said honestly. Her lips curved into a slow smile. Before I could say anything else, she reached up, her hand cupping my jaw, and kissed me. It wasn't hesitant this time. It was slow, deliberate. Like she'd already decided there was no turning back tonight. My hand slid to her waist, pulling her closer, and she let out a soft sound against my lips, her fingers curling in my shirt. When we finally pulled apart, she didn't move away. She stayed close, her forehead resting against mine, her breathing uneven. "Do you know how dangerous this is?" she whispered. "Yes," I said, my hand still on her waist. "Do you want me to leave?" She hesitated for a second, then shook her head slowly. "No, not tonight." That was all I needed. I kissed her again, deeper this time, my hands sliding up her back as she pressed against me. She laughed softly against my lips, breathless, and pulled me toward the living room. She sat on the couch, pulling me with her. And this time she didn't stop me when my hand slid under the thin fabric of her shirt, just resting lightly on her warm skin. "You're still shaking," she whispered with a soft smile. "Maybe," I admitted. Her laugh was quiet, almost tender. "You're honest. I like that." I smiled, leaning in to kiss her again, slower now, savoring every second. For a while, we just stayed there, kissing, touching, whispering things we probably shouldn't. Her fingers traced the back of my neck, sending shivers down my spine, and every time we pulled back for air. She looked at me like she couldn't believe this was happening either. At one point, she sat back slightly, her hair falling over her shoulder, her lips swollen from kissing. "You know, we can't keep doing this forever, right?" she said softly. "I know," I said, my voice steady, "but we're still doing this tonight." She added, almost like a question. "Yes," I said simply. Her smile widened, slow and warm, and she pulled me back in for another kiss. Minutes turned to an hour, maybe more. The room felt warm, the world outside silent. Every touch felt heavier, every kiss deeper. And by the time we finally stopped, we were both breathless. She leaned back against the couch, her head resting on my shoulder, her fingers lightly brushing my chest. "Hey, I haven't felt like this in a long time," she whispered. "Me neither," I said honestly. She smiled faintly, almost shyly. "You make me feel alive again." I kissed her forehead softly, and for the first time, it didn't feel just dangerous. She felt real. We stayed like that for a while, just holding each other, the quiet filling the room. Finally, she sighed softly, pulling back slightly. "You should go before I do something we can't undo, Clara." I started, but she pressed a finger to my lips, smiling. "Tomorrow," she whispered. "Tomorrow," I agreed. As I left that night, I glanced back once. She was standing in the doorway, watching me leave, her hair falling over her shoulder, her lips curved into a small, secret smile. And I knew tomorrow wasn't going to be just kissing anymore. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Herc, Lorette smiling at me as I left, her hair falling over her shoulder, her lips swollen from kissing, and all I could think about was her last word to me. Tomorrow, by evening. I was already outside her house, my heart hammering so hard I could barely breathe. She opened the door slowly this time, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. She wasn't smiling playfully like before. Her expression was softer, almost shy, like she'd been waiting for this too. "You're here," she said quietly. "You told me to come," I replied. Her lips curved into a faint smile. I know. The house was silent again, the air thick with something neither of us could ignore anymore. She closed the door behind me, locking it with a soft click. "Aaron won't be home until tomorrow," she said, her voice barely above. A whisper. Something about the way she said it sent a rush of heat through me. "Then we have all night," I said. She looked at me for a long second, her eyes searching mine, and then finally she whispered, "Follow me." She led me down the hallway, her bare feet silent against the hardwood floor. My pulse roared in my ears as I followed her into her bedroom. It felt different being in her room, more intimate, more dangerous. She turned to me slowly, standing near the edge of the bed. Her hair framed her face perfectly, falling in soft waves, and the dim light from the lamp gave her skin a warm glow. For a long moment, she didn't speak. She just looked at me, her breathing quiet but uneven. "This is insane," she said finally, almost like she was trying to convince herself one last time. "I know," I said, stepping closer. "We shouldn't do this." She whispered even, as her hands were already gripping the edge of her cardigan. "But we're going to," I said softly. She gave a small, breathless laugh. "Your trouble." "And you love it?" I teased. That made her smile a slow smile that made my chest tighten. Finally, she let the cardigan slide off her shoulders, leaving her in a thin black camisole that clung to her curves in all the right ways. My breath caught, and she noticed. "Still nervous?" she asked, tilting her head. "Terrified," I admitted. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing against my jaw, then trailing lightly down my chest. "Good," she whispered. "So am I." Then she kissed me. Not the soft, hesitant kiss from before. This one was deep, hungry. Like every ounce of restraint we'd been holding on to had finally snapped. Her hands slid up to my hair, pulling me closer, and I wrapped my arms around her waist, feeling her press against me completely. She gasped softly against my lips, her fingers curling tighter in my shirt as the kiss grew more desperate. When we finally pulled apart for air, her forehead rested against mine, her breathing heavy. "You make me feel alive again," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You make me feel." "Everything," I said honestly. She smiled faintly, almost shyly, then kissed me against lower now, more tender, but no less intense. We moved toward the bed without thinking, her fingers laced with mine. As she pulled me with her, she sat first, looking up at me, her eyes soft, almost vulnerable. "We don't have to rush," she said quietly, as if offering me a way out. "I'm not going anywhere," I replied. Her smile widened, warm and real, and she tugged me closer, until I was sitting beside her. For a long time, we just sat there, kissing slowly, her hands tracing the line of my shoulders, mine resting carefully on her waist. Every touch felt electric, every sigh from her lips driving me deeper into something I couldn't stop even if I wanted to. At one point, she pulled back, her eyes locked on mine, her cheeks flushed. "You have no idea how long it's been since someone touched me like this," she whispered. "I'll make up for lost time," I said, my voice low. That made her laugh softly, but her laughter quickly faded as she kissed me again, her hands sliding under my shirt, her fingertips tracing lightly over my skin. I shivered, and she noticed, smiling against my lips. "You're shaking again?" "Because of you," I admitted. She kissed me harder at that, almost like my honesty stirred something in her. Minutes stretched into an hour, maybe longer, as we lost ourselves in each other. The way her hands moved, the way she whispered my name once under her breath, it was intoxicating. Finally, she pulled back slightly, her hair a little messy, her lips swollen, her eyes shining in the dim light. "You should stay tonight," she whispered. "Are you sure?" I asked, my heart pounding. She nodded slowly, smiling faintly. "I don't want to be alone tonight, and I'm not leaving," I said. She smiled at that, leaning in to kiss me again, slower this time, almost like a promise. As she rested her head against my chest, her fingers tracing lazy circles on my arm. I knew this wasn't just about stolen kisses or reckless passion anymore. This was something deeper, something we couldn't take back. And as I held her close, her breathing slowing as she drifted against me, one thought kept echoing in my mind: tomorrow, everything would change.